Mary or Martha? If I had to ask you, which one would you choose that you would exemplify? Which one would you choose? Many of you may know the story. Many of you may not. But I want to read the Bible passage to you that illuminates these two characters. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. The Bible says, as Jesus and his disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed them into her home. Her sister, Mary, sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was prepping. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come help me. To give you a little bit of context here, Mary and Martha are two very pivotal women in the life of Jesus. They were very present in many of the moments that we see here in the New Testament. Here in this chapter, Jesus has been teaching, he has been commissioning his disciples, and he has been doing his ministry. And now as he's traveling through Jerusalem, he comes to Mary and Martha's house. And Martha welcomes him in. And she begins to prepare a big meal. And so as we look at Martha, she is actively serving and actively working. If you're in a church, you would say that this is exactly a great example of how it should be in the work of Jesus, in the work for Jesus. Martha was actively working and actively serving. What about Mary? Well, the next verse tells us that Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to what he was saying. There's one thing that is so interesting about Mary as you look in the New Testament. Anytime you see in the scriptures when she is with Jesus, she is always listening, she is always learning, she is always worshiping. But most of all, she is always at the feet of Jesus. She anointed the feet of Jesus. When her and Martha's brother Lazarus dies, she runs to the feet of Jesus and falls at it. And then here in this chapter, we see that she is at the feet of Jesus. A sign of faith, a sign of submission, a willingness to learn from him, a willingness also to listen to what he is saying. And so it would be right in hindsight for Martha to say, hey Jesus, tell Mary that she needs to help me prepare this big meal. It's hard, I'm sweating. Tell her to help me, Jesus. But listen to the words of Jesus. He says in verse 31, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all of these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. You see, with Mary is the one who is commended. Yes, a big dinner is important. Yes, Jesus has been working very hard. Jesus has traveled everywhere. But the most important thing that could be done at that time was to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to him and learn from him. Now, you may say, did Mary have some work to do? Possibly. But she chose to sit at the feet of Jesus, the thing that is so important in this life. You see, as Martha was working for Jesus, Mary was worshiping Jesus. As Martha was exhausting herself for Jesus, Mary would be the one exalting Jesus. As Martha was sweating for Jesus, Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. And while Martha ran to her work, Mary ran to the feet of Jesus. You see, Martha was focusing on the work. Mary was focusing on Jesus. There's a lot of differences here that we see. But I want to ask you, what is it that you will choose today? If you choose to work for Jesus, that's so very important. But what about sitting at the feet of Jesus? What about sitting and learning and listening to him? I love what one person points out. There is some who know how to sit and to serve. Not only sit at the feet of Jesus, but also serve him in a mighty way. And then there's some who serve and they do very well. However, they have never taken time to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from him. And then you also have the one who does neither. His concern is not about Jesus. His thoughts are not about Jesus. It's not even on Jesus. He's just thinking about himself. Which one would you rather be? Would you want to be the one who serves and then chooses to sit, who knows how to serve well and learn well from Jesus? Or you want to be one who is consumed with the work of Jesus and not take time to sit with him? Or maybe you're the person watching who doesn't care about neither. Simply put, you may ask, how can I make today count for his honor, for his glory? I want to encourage you and I want to exhort you. If you have been working for Jesus and have not taken the time to sit and listen and learn from him, then I would encourage you today to be like Mary. I would encourage you today to sit at the feet of Jesus, to choose that which is commendable, to choose that one thing that Jesus said will never be taken away from Mary. Don't get so consumed with the work that it affects your relationship with Jesus. Yes, you can still do something that will outlive you for eternity. But maybe at this time, you need to sit with Jesus and let him speak to you. And you listen and let it prepare you for eternity. Learn to make today count by learning to choose to sit at the feet of Jesus, listening to him, learning from him, but most of all, worshiping him. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel to see more encouraging content.